Connecting Bill.
Hey,
Hey man, we figured it
yes.
out, didn't we? How are you,
Yeah.
Bill? Yeah, it
Well,
didn't take
just
much long.
enjoying spring break.
Oh yeah, me too. What's the weather like up there?
Very nice. Although we're supposed to get a pretty hard cold snap pretty quick, but that's the way it works. February thaw, March freeze, snow on Easter. That's just Oklahoma.
You're in Ohio, right?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Okay. Oh, right. Yeah. I'm down here in Alabama. I thought you was further up north. Well, anyway, as everybody knows, I'm Chris, the admin of the Killer Angels, and here's Bill, one of our contributors, and his expert is in tactics. He handles Tactics Thursday for us every day, so he does a good job with it. I mean, I really enjoy reading those. You do excellent with them.
Well, thanks. I have fun with it. I only copy from, I steal from the best, is what I mean.
Hey, I do too. I remember we had a member one time, and uh, smart man. I mean, he knew everything about Gettysburg, and he said he'd get mad at me from time to time, and he got mad at me one time and said, "I know more about the Civil War than you do." And my response was, I said, "Why do you think I recruited you?" I said, "I
Makes
go out and
perfect
find."
sense.
I said, "I go out and find the people that are smarter than me and know more than I do, and I'll go get them." And I said, "It makes me look good."
That's how it
Anyway,
works.
so Bill said, tell me about some of his favorite battles, and one we just got through talking about. I wish we'd known we could have did it. This was the Battle of Pea Ridge and the tactics that were involved in that. Well, Bill, I'll go ahead and I'll let you tell us about that. However you want to start off and tell us, how it opened up, and just let you take it from there.
Um, well, there's a lot of interesting things I find about Pea Ridge. One of the few times where the Union was outnumbered. Um, uh, the, the most decisive battle in the Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma area. It followed some real uh, Union successes in Missouri after Wilson Creek. The
Bill, do you have a
Confederates just,
microphone? Do you have a microphone you can turn down a little bit? It's kind of echoing.
oh, I'm probably still in that other call.
Could very well, it could very well be. You, I didn't end that. Yeah, that's better. That's perfect. Yeah. Did I lose you there, Bill? All right. Well, fix yours back, Bill. Go ahead and fix yours back.
All right, let's try this again.
Okay. I'm sorry. All right. Go ahead, Bill. So you said that was what now?
Oh, the after Wilson's Creek, the Confederates couldn't really get it together under Price and ended up getting pushed out of Missouri. And they ended up in Arkansas uh, and were joined up by some Texas troops under McCulloch, I believe. Yeah, and they proceeded to fight and feud until Jeff Davis decided to end the matter by sending over Van Dorn to take command.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, the Army of the Southwest, as it was called then, under Curtis, started heading south out of Missouri along the Telegraph Road. A lot of there's roads all over the place called Old Wire Road. It's still in Fayetteville, and those are just roads that follow the original path of telegraph. They would have to cut a path and string the wire, and those became a road. And so that was the Telegraph Road, and that was Curtis's supply line. And it got pretty long by the time he got into Arkansas, so he decided he better hold up there and see what developed. In the meantime, his other commander, Siegel, was getting his panties in a wad because he thought he should be commander. And but nevertheless, he decided to almost cooperate. He did do some kind of silly things in the prelude to the battle. He sent off 360 men to the west who had missed the battle completely. And in the prelude to the battle, he almost got like 600 men and 12 cannon captured at Bentonville when he didn't retreat quick enough to Curtis's position just south of the Arkansas-Missouri border. But he managed to avoid it, that capture, and he did make it back to Curtis's position, which was very, very strong. He was on some raised land. They call it a bluff, but I've seen it. It's not really that high, but it's very defensible. And he had dug rifle pits, and it straddled the Telegraph Road, and he was just daring the Confederates to come in and attack him in this fixed position. He knew he was outnumbered, and he thought maybe they'll be aggressive and go for him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Van Dorn was going to be aggressive, but he had no intention of attacking him head on. He wanted to get up and around the position, heading up the west and then cutting over northeast to get to a place called Willow Hollow, which is just north of the Elkhorn Tavern, which is also one of the names of this battle, the Battle of Elkhorn Tavern.
And wasn't there two separate battles of Elkhorn Tavern, or separate on 2 different days?
Yes, this battle, not counting the prelude at Bentonville, was a 2-day battle. Once everything was, the Federals were in place along Sugar Creek, Little Sugar Creek. They were just waiting, but luckily they had sent out patrols, and the patrols caught Van Dorn's force heading up to the west. And the night before, Curtis had sent a guy named Dodge to go out and cover the road that was leading to his rear and to fell trees and make roadblocks all across it. And the whole time Van Dorn's been marching, it's been a horrible spring ice storm, and just been miserable. He was traveling light, just 3 days worth of rations, and everything else left behind, which became very important. And
How many troops you think he had?
I've actually got it up right here, about 1,600, I believe.
Yeah.
No, wrong again, Bill. Let's see. Yeah, I got it here. Yeah, 16,000. So he outnumbered them pretty heavily. I think they had like 12,000. I'm just pulling that number out of my ass, but that's roughly the ratio. But he had Van Dorn had split his forces between McCulloch and Price, and sent them all up this long cutoff just north of the Elkhorn Tavern. But running in between the weather and all of the roadblocks that Dodge had put in place, his column was strung out from just about where Curtis' position was on Little Sugar Creek
Yeah.
all the way up and over to that Willow Springs, I believe it's called. And so he spotted, and so he just basically told everybody to attack from where you are. So the forces, he was with the forces at Willow, whatever, north of Elkhorn Tavern, and he headed south down the Telegraph Road, and then McCulloch headed east along a road called Ford Road. So they were actually coming in two separate groups like this towards Curtis. But Curtis kind of knew what was going on. So from that very strong position, he realized, well, they're just not going to come up and meet me. He sent one group this way with a guy named Ousterhouse, and he sent some reinforcements back to the north, and he kept some down on Little Sugar Creek. Well, Ousterhouse and McCulloch forces ran into each other at this little hamlet called Leestown.
At least
It didn't
see,
even
I
have a
remember
water
that. Yeah.
source.
Okay.
It didn't even have a water source. So it was just a few homes. Calling it a town is a really big stretch. But there were fields there that they were cultivating. And those fields are where those two blundered into each other. Sometimes, Osterhaus literally just went to reconnoiter, popped his head through a band of trees, and saw McCulloch's troops heading east. And he knew that was going to be a real big problem. So just to buy time, he had his tiny little force attack him. And that caused the McCulloch's troops heading east to redeploy and go after Ousterhouse. And they called up more troops and they got in line. At one point, Ousterhouse's artillery was shelling over a band of trees. And the biggest effect there was some native troops under Albert Pike of the Masonic fame, which had already tangled with some advanced federal elements and overrun them. Actually, it's pretty clear that they, after they were overrun, they killed some of the wounded, and at least 8 were scalped. And Albert Pike was pretty disgusted by the whole situation. But once those artillery shells started landing anywhere close to these native troops, they were scared to death of these thunder wagons, as they were called by the native troops, and they just took off. In the meantime, like I said, both sides were deploying more and more men. The Confederate commanders, 3 in a row, one was killed, another was killed.
That's right. Yeah.
After that, a third one was captured.
And that totally just demoralized them, right?
Well, there was no command after the first
Right,
guy.
no command and control.
After the first guy was killed, he liked to ride around in this black velvet cloak, and it made him stand out. And he got close enough to the federal pickets, and he was killed. And when the second in command got a hold of that, that was McCulloch that was killed, realized that he was in charge. He didn't want to demoralize the troops, so he just took command, but he didn't let anybody else know that he was in command. And so when he was killed, and the third guy took over, nobody knew that it had gone down 3 spots in the command structure. And when the third guy was captured, the fourth guy in line had no idea that he was in command. And so everything just fell apart on that side of the battlefield. And it just never really recovered. All of that happened fairly early on in the fight, and like by midday or so, there just wasn't any way the Confederates could organize themselves enough to continue the push. Meanwhile, up by Elkhorn Tavern, there was a golden opportunity, one of those many golden opportunities in the Civil War, for Van Dorn to move ahead and capture a very small force at Elkhorn Tavern.
Wasn't that late in
But
the evening?
at this point, it was rather early in the morning on the first day, the 7th. And
Okay,
he, but
that's right.
because the head of his column was in position at Willow Springs, maybe, and Willow something. And he had managed to, when McCulloch headed east, the rest of his troop kind of eventually, his division kind of caught up to him. And they hadn't all arrived yet, but he still greatly outnumbered the small force at Elkhorn Tavern. But after being all this aggressive and forced march and swinging around to the rear, he was in position, and then Van Dorn decided to just kind of creep up to the Elkhorn Tavern position. It's hard to know why. I mean, he was trying to surprise them, but the fact, I guess, that anyone was there gave him pause. So by the time he got it together to start an advance uphill towards Elkhorn Tavern, Carr was attacking downhill from Elkhorn Tavern, again, just to buy time, because the Federals were not concentrated at all. And word had gotten back down to Curtis at his headquarters at a place called Price Stores, and he started moving more and more folks up from Little Sugar Creek. And by the time they actually started a full-blown assault on Elkhorn Tavern, it became more of a meeting engagement at that point at Elkhorn Tavern instead of a set battle at Little Sugar Creek. So there were actually two meeting engagements, one at Leestown and then one at Elkhorn Tavern. The fighting seesawed back and forth at Elkhorn Tavern. Eventually, the Confederates managed to take the position at Elkhorn Tavern, but the Union was far from completely routed or defeated. So they each spent the night kind of licking their wounds and preparing for battle the next day. Van Dorn thinking that he had them on the run, and Curtis thinking, well, you know, I held up pretty well, and now I know where they are. Their position's been developed, and I'm going to stay here and fight him. Besides that, he was cut off from Missouri along the Telegraph Road, so if he didn't fight his way north, he was going to be in horrible shape anyway. So Van Dorn had done what he wanted to do. He had him totally cut off. So they had to come and fight. They couldn't go away. But of course, Van Dorn's biggest blunder was leaving all of his supplies behind and not having his reserve ammunition train at least moved up. And so that night, and he's still very sick. He went through this whole battle really, really sick. And that night of the 7th, he learned that he wasn't going to get his ammunition nearly in time for tomorrow's battle. And he knew it was a roll of the dice at that point. He had to win quick, or he wasn't going to win at all, because he was going to run out of artillery. Well, he had the artillery, but he would run out of artillery ammunition. Meantime, the entire Army of the Southwest got online along that Telegraph Road and was poised to head north. Curtis had to kind of make a decision what to do about Sigel after he had almost gotten part of his force captured at Bentonville before the battle. He hadn't done very well on the 7th either. And so he could have relieved him for what he did, but he knew that Sigel had good artillery experience, very good artillery experience, and kept him in place. And that really helped because on the morning of the 8th, as the battle began, Sigel did an excellent job of doing counter battery fire against the Confederate position. Very rightly, he focused his entire batteries on one position at a time and waiting till that position was knocked out. Then he moved all of his guns to the next position and just took care of them one gun at a time. And while the Confederates were just kind of firing at all of the guns at once, they weren't concentrating their fire. So he did a brilliant job of concentrating his fire. Once the artillery was out of the way, he then started pounding the position that the Confederates were in, which was up against a bluff, and a very rocky bluff. And while the shells themselves couldn't do a whole lot of damage, when they hit that rocky bluff,
Yeah.
it acted like shrapnel blowing back
Oh,
on the
wow.
backside of the Confederate troops. It's one of the
Wow.
few times that an opening artillery barrage in the Civil War actually softened up a position. Because the Confederates on
Just from blind luck.
Union left and the Confederate right were really pretty, at least disorganized, and were already fairly bloodied. And then the Union just kind of headed north. It was not a done deal. They had to be pretty careful. It devolved into like regimental and even company level engagements, but those individual Union commanders did a good job of keeping their men together, protecting their flanks, and going after the Confederates. And eventually they just managed to break through. And then things just went from bad to worse for Van Dorn. When he decided, yeah, he had to retreat, the word did not get out in an efficient manner. So part of his forces went to the east along a very difficult road through hard scrabble, Arkansas, where there was nothing to live on, and so they were in bad trouble. Part of them headed back west the way they came, and some few of them actually went north along the Telegraph Road.
Just scattered.
So Van Dorn's troops went in three different directions. And that just secured that Telegraph Road. That secured the supply line into Arkansas. The Unions were able to develop that supply line further.
Yeah,
and,
pretty much did Arkansas, right? I mean, I know there was some.
Well, Missouri. It secured Missouri.
Excuse me, Missouri. I'm sorry. I meant, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there were some raids into Missouri and horrible guerrilla action. Price did one last raid late in the war, but only thing that did was actually clear out the guerrillas who all joined him. So when he was finally defeated, Curtis again did that up at Westport in Kansas. It was just, Missouri was held and Arkansas was wide open. And the next time there was any attempt to take control in Arkansas was Prairie Grove sometimes later, and that didn't turn out either. So yeah, this one battle in Pea Ridge was very decisive in the Trans-Mississippi region.
That's a great story. I've never heard it quite put like that way before, or told in that much detail about the battle is what you just did. That was a phenomenal job.
Oh, well, believe me, the individual, like I said, the regimental size actions and even company size action at Leestown and at Elkhorn Tavern on the first day, and then even on the second day, are all really interesting. There's lots more detail to go into. One last thing I want to let you know is if you ever visit that battlefield, up on that bluff, there is a lookout where you can look down and see where the entire Army of the Southwest was spread out in one line for the advance on the 8th. And it's the only time that an entire army had been spread out in one line. So it must have been quite a sight if you could have seen it, to see all those. Plenty of markers, and I just highly commend it.
Hold on 1 second, Bill. Let's see here. Hold on 1 second for me. Cancel. Hold on 1 second for me. It was supposed to start at 11:30, and I told him to give me 10 minutes. I was still in one. um, yeah, I can see. I mean, I had a class, the War in the War in the Modern World, and the Battle of Pea Ridge was one of them. And it said, that essentially, like I said, it opened Arkansas up. I mean, it ended up leading to there was Arkansas, Missouri was pretty much out of it at that point.
It secured Grant. Western flank, so he was in better shape. It was the Trans-Mississippi region was really a Union bright spot early on in the war. It made a lot of difference and kept things from really getting worse and made it a lot easier for Grant to focus on what he was doing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one thing. I mean, I've got to start getting into more. I was discussing somebody that the asked, I've got Trans-Mississippi Theater guys. I've got, Western guys. Problem is, I'm trying to get them, to post more, because everybody gets tired of the East. I mean, you can only hear so much about Antietam, which is fine and everything. I mean, but, what so many people don't realize is the war wasn't lost in the East. I mean, that's not where the war was lost at.
In the Western, Western
yeah. One of my former acquaintances or whatever, he was a Lee hater. And he's actually from Alabama like I am. He's almost like a self-hating Southerner. But, he hated Lee. Lee called these cats and everything. And I told him once, I said, look, and he talked about Chancellorsville then. He said he had nothing but Pyrrhic victories. And I said, well, if they'd had more Pyrrhic victories in the West, you would have had a victory there. If you'd had a Pyrrhic victory at Shiloh and Chattanooga and so forth, you wouldn't be talking about that. But, the West, especially the Trans-Mississippi area, just doesn't get the attention
that it deserves. And the Trans-Mississippi secured the West so it could be decisive.
Right. Both it was like dominoes falling with those two right there. And I hope I don't know if you seen it the other day. I put up about battle seasons coming up, and and I'm sure there'll be some out there. So I mean, if you've got some out there in the Trans-Mississippi that you want to post on. Because I thought we've got some kind of discussion coming up tomorrow. Because how long have you been a member now?
Golly, just maybe 6 months.
Okay, yeah, I thought you came right like before, like towards the end. But anyway, what we do is when it gets into it, like we'll have a major discussion on every battle out there and. Trying to get the smaller ones involved in too, because when I first started this 2 years ago, it kind of rocked along. And then last year, I think last year about March, I had about 600 members, and I thought, oh, this is really cool. And then pandemic hit, and I got stuck in the house forever, and I was like, well, man, let's see what I can do with this. So I started recruiting and going, and some of the admins probably got mad at me because I would go find their best mind, so to speak, and then recruit them. And they would get mad at me, and I would be like, look, I said, my group's different than everybody else's. I want to focus on the military history, so the people that come there are going to stay. You know, they're not going to get mad over something and leave. They're going to stay and, you know, and play armchair general with me all the time. So.
Oh yeah, the military science is the most interesting part for me. The
like I care.
Personalities don't interest me nearly as much.
Yeah, like, you know, I told somebody tried to get into me about the reasons why secession. I said, look, it doesn't really matter to me. I said, because I bet you right now, if you went out and asked 100 Americans why we went to war with Germany, they'd say Pearl Harbor. And I'd say, no, Hitler declared war on the United Hitler declared war. The only country Hitler declared war on was the United States. And, you know, but, you know, the politics behind it really doesn't matter. The like I said, the military science is the thing that I love about it, you know.
Well, the politics is philosophy, and you know, this gets more into the military science end of it is more cut and dried. You know, either it happened or it didn't. They did it this way or they did it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can argue this caused the war or this didn't, this right here, but no, there's no arguing that, you know, this is what happened. You know, we can all sit here and play, if they hadn't have done this that day, you know, Lee had to call off that charge. But no, you're right. That's it, you know, that's the fun of it.
Another little known battle was part of that Price raid, Pilot Knob. It's a really fun little battle, and I know a fair amount about that. I've been to that reenactment a couple of times, and it's a blast, literally.
Well, you know, I mean, I like those small battles like that. I mean, battles like that. You know, sometimes they're even more interesting. And I remember you named all of those. We will definitely. I mean, if you want to, over the next couple of weeks, we'll try to provide one a week for everybody or something like that if you're interested in doing it.
Yeah, well, the ones I'm close to, you know, I just visited a whole lot and have read a whole lot, and so that's where I am. So that's what I do.
Well, there's anything else you want to add to this one? I'll close it out and get it edited and posted on. Did I give you the YouTube channel yet?
No.
Okay. Well, I'll send you a copy to the YouTube channel, and I'm gonna edit it and post it there first. And I've got some of the other videos already set up. I've got 3 of them, so this will be the 4th, and then I've got another interview next. So I'll get that edited and posted up, and I'll send you a link to the YouTube channel. Hey, and please subscribe to it too.
I will.
Hey, thanks, Bill, man. I enjoyed the conversation. Let's do this again.
Sure.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
Thanks, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.